Today, we welcome to the Global Citizenship Education interview series Thomas Schneider. Thomas Schneider is the fifth chief executive of the Association of Pacific Rim University, APRU, an alliance of leading research universities in the Asia Pacific. Throughout his career, Thomas Schneider has held academic and administrative positions across 4 global regions: North America, Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. He's currently a professor of Egyptology and Near Eastern Studies at the University of British Columbia and has held visiting professorships at the University of Vienna, the University of Heidelberg, and the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. From 2018 to 2020, Thomas Schneider served as Associate Vice President International at the Southern University of Science and Technology in Shenzhen, China. Additionally, he co-founded PALOC, a consortium of liberal arts colleges in Asia and North America. So, Thomas, very welcome to the Global Citizenship Education interview series. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you so much, Emiliano. It's really a pleasure to be here. I'm delighted. And thank you for the very kind words of introduction.
Excellent. And so the first question is a challenging one. And the question is, what is global citizenship and how this notion, if at all, relates to your life journey and academic journey?
Yes, there are many different contending definitions of global citizenship, and I got into the field in a pragmatic way. I'm not a scholar of global citizenship, and I have a rather unusual pathway into the field, so I will also a little bit elaborate on this. I think in general, I would say global citizenship is a kind of a transnational form of affiliation or identity that is informed by common values and priorities. These values might be the UN Declaration of Human Rights, or, for example, the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations and other similar values and priorities. I really would want to emphasize that, in my view, it's global citizenship is being built over years by personal life experience. There's no shortcut to global citizenship. And that's a challenge maybe also to global citizenship education, right? Which cannot necessarily be condensed into a single program. It's really the exposure of a lifetime. I'm close to the field of archaeology, and archaeologists always say there are no armchair archaeologists, there are no armchair global citizens, right? So to emphasize this point.
Absolutely.
So I think a key point is really a deep understanding, deep knowledge, and also an empathy for the complexity, I would say, of the globe and the very diverse local and regional contexts. Not necessarily sympathy, but at least a respect and empathy is necessary. There is also a very strong participatory component. I think advancing the values and priorities in an active or proactive way is essential for everyone who wants to be a global citizen. And at APRU, as I will elaborate on, we pursue very much a pragmatic approach. So it's not like there's a theory of global citizenship and we impose it on our programs, but it evolves quite naturally from what we do and from the conversations we are having across the network. APRU, as you briefly mentioned, could be seen as the globe in a nutshell.
Absolutely. So you mentioned empathy for our shared planet. And a follow-up question is, you're doing a very interesting work with as you just mentioned, the Association of Pacific Rim University, as well with the Pacific Alliance of Liberal Arts Colleges. So my question is specifically in terms of the APRU work that you're doing, how your line of work, the initiatives and events and the platform itself, how does it connect to notions of global citizenship and global citizens?
Thank you. Can I take one step back and quickly say on how my life journey, aligns with global citizenship?
Absolutely.
If you had asked me maybe 20 years ago, I would possibly a bit naively have said that I'm a global citizen because I would, in a more theoretical way, possibly have consented with many of the assumptions, that underscore global citizenship values, priorities or so. But I wouldn't have had much personal exposure to what it actually means, the diversity of the globe. I'm a citizen, national citizen of Germany, and I have of German-Swiss background, married to a Polish woman, and in the meantime naturalized Canadian. And then through my academic work, I was exposed a little bit, in the Middle East, particularly Egypt.
Yeah.
But only when I moved to Canada and I was suddenly teaching Egyptian religion to a global audience. I was suddenly thrown into what it means to be confronted with a very little homogeneous audience, right? That come from very different, diverse backgrounds.
The
And
multicultural pot.
exactly right, which was in Vancouver. But the really life-changing, I think, event was when I started working in China, which was extremely alienating from the beginning. So I think it's also
Yeah.
part of the story to feel discomfort because you are really exposed to very different realities. And you just mentioned you live in Tokyo. So I think, this is the kind of exposure you are receiving. So, this Chinese experience helped me to transform into a global citizenship. And now I come to your question on APRU. APRU has really given me a platform to actually act out as a global citizenship and implement a number of specific programs. So I'm happy to, tell you a little bit more about this. And, I can say a little bit more about the Palak initiative later, but I think APRU is my current role. So I think there I can really have much more to contribute.
Yeah, let's focus on that. That's very interesting. And how it relates to notions of global citizenship and global citizens. If you could build on that too, that would be also very interesting to our audience.
Yes. So, APRU, the Association of Pacific Rim Universities, has quite a long history. It was established in 1997 by 4 presidents, chancellors of Californian institutions of higher learning. And it happened in a time of US-Chinese political tensions. And the idea was to create a platform that could bypass those tensions and to further collaboration across the Asia Pacific that historically hasn't seen, a huge degree of maybe interfacing, maybe quite different historically from the Atlantic Ocean. And from these humble beginnings, the association has grown, and the basic premise is still the same. We function as a connector across the Asia Pacific. We currently comprise 62 member universities in 18 economies. We serve more than 2 million students, 200,000 professors that come from all these different backgrounds, West and East, North and South. So it's quite diverse, and the purpose is to connect these members, but also to connect them with the corporate sector, with the governments, with NGOs outside academia, and really to foster collaboration. And the collaboration implicitly always has something to do with global citizenship. So we use the SDGs as metrics of what we do, and we do initiatives and activities that actually are relevant to virtually all SDGs. But of course, built into these programs is, a deep commitment to building understanding across the Asia Pacific, to navigate complexity, to create consensus. And I give you maybe a number of examples. We have research-related programs, I would say. So they try to tackle, or maybe a bit more modestly, they try to contribute to the solution of the big challenges like global health and biodiversity, multi-hazards, sustainability across the Asia Pacific. We added recently food security as a new focus area. So these are very much research informed, and they are led by partner universities. But students are always involved, and we always bring students together with academic mentors. We give them global exposure in the form of workshops, of competitions, etc. We bring them together in multicultural teams where they actually are exposed to learning with different students from other member economies. So this happens across all of our programs. We have particular student engagement activities, and I just mentioned one that is of particular interest to you here. One of our programs, you might have seen it, but we offer more than 40 different programs, is called SDGs for Global Citizenship Education. And it just in a nutshell gives you an idea of how we operate. So it's a program that is supported by the United Nations, and it is basically implemented by 6 member universities that have a particular interest in this specific program. And it happens every single year. So we make a call to students, they apply for the program. Then there is a long period of training that happens. So like a remote, a virtual component where instructors train the students on issues of global relevance. They try to enhance the global literacy of those students. And then, so this is the education component, right? About a certain topic, for example, health or global well-being was last year's topic. Sustainability is more focused this year. And then there is, I mentioned before, the importance to bring students, to give them the exposure to global diversity. Then there is an on-the-ground, component of the program where we bring the students in 2 cohorts to Thailand and to Malaysia. And there they are confronted with local case studies relating to health, to poverty, to energy transition, to waste management, right? Very, very concrete programs. And then following the on-site experience, the students go back to their universities, but they continue to work on social innovation projects. So where they are teamed together, and then there is a pitching competition at the end, where we award the best projects, etc. So there's also like a learning component, but they also work on a solution on a small scale. This is that competition, right? And this is like in a nutshell one program where you have a good understanding of what it means to engage our students on the issues of global citizenship.
An excellent example of global citizenship development in action. That's what we need really, because as you know very well, the discussion on global citizenship education in some cases is theoretical, but we want to also, particularly in this video interview series, to learn practical implementation. So that's very interesting. Perhaps later we could include in the description of this video interview some links to the program that you mentioned, as well as other links that you believe are useful to our audience. That would be adding value to our conversation, which is very engaging and interesting. All right, so we discussed an example of how the APRU implements notions of global citizens development, global citizenship education into actionable programs. Now, I'd like to learn from you a couple of some insights about upcoming project events, conferences where you are involved directly or indirectly as APRU. 1 or 2 is absolutely fine, just to learn more about the work you're doing and the type of events you are involved with.
Yeah, thank you, Emiliano. So I think it's important to understand that we are constantly evolving, right? I mentioned we are 28 years old, but the globe has transformed quite dramatically within those close to 30 years, to the degree that it's difficult to recognize the world 30 years ago from what it is now. And of course, this is also informing our projects. We are really building also much of what we do through these projects is building networks across the Asia Pacific. I always compares to kind of like of a tissue that is quite stretchable across the Asia Pacific. So whatever happens, we are able to keep the Asia Pacific together across our projects, our networks, thousands of people involved in what we do. We also, I just mentioned it before, we not only engage research and students, we also work on policy development. We try to make institutional change happen. For example, I just mentioned it before, I speak about 2 or 3 projects. Asia Pacific Women in Leadership is one of our key programs where we try to increase the representation of women in leadership positions and create institutional change. And we recently have started building an indigenous knowledge network that is expanding and that tries to bring into the platform of APRU indigenous voices from across the Asia Pacific. But let me explain, maybe highlight 2 or 3 exciting projects that we are currently working on. As you know, artificial intelligence is changing the world as we speak. And so we have concluded the first project over the past 2 years on artificial intelligence in higher education, really looking at the transformation that AI creates within a university context, teaching, learning, assessment, but also, again, it has this strong educational component, right? And also how AI can be used to further, for example, our projects that are tailored to global citizenship education, and a different project that we are just embarked on with the support of data.org and the Mastercard Foundation is big data for social impact. Really, the idea of that project is by data.org to train 1 million practitioners in big data science, particularly in Southeast Asia. And this is something that we often do. You could say global citizenship, but there are many disparities hidden behind this idea of a unified globe, right?
Absolutely.
And so, like
Absolutely.
in many of the Pacific challenges that we try to tackle within APRU, you see that there is extreme wealth and there is a plethora of resources in the well-resourced economies, but there is really a lack of resources in some of the under-resourced areas like Southeast Asia or South America. So that's where we try to leverage really the influence that we afford in the network. And so here we help that initiative to get 1 million practitioners trained, and they are being trained not theoretically on what big data is, but on big data in health and big data in health hazards and disaster resilience and big data and sustainability and biodiversity. So it's all like applied, right? So that's, I think, a good project. Then we try to build these kinds of networks. And so much of what we do actually is we connect, but we also all the time we talk a lot in APRU because we have to create consensus, and we have to navigate very different mentalities across our different economies. We are currently building a network of university forest living labs. So we have many of our universities, they operate university forests. And we bring these different forests together from the temperate rainforest of North America to the tropical rainforests and some other, ecosystems to create like a global platform where we can monitor biodiversity, where we can monitor carbon flux, for example, changes in those university forests. At the same time, we use that platform to educate students on biodiversity and climate change problems right across the network. So you see, we combine research, we combine education, we bring different students from different areas of the globe together. So it's actually global citizenship education, I would say, in practice. And the last maybe 2 exciting projects that are totally new to APRU is we do more on the culture side. So we are currently creating like a museum of the Asia Pacific in APRU. We have more than 150 museums across our network that actually embody many of the resources and the values that we want to really give a platform in global citizenship. And we will use this museum, hopefully, to bring different communities together across the Asia Pacific and to train them in the different cultures and the different histories and civilizations of the Asia Pacific. And the other embodiment of global citizenship in practice is we are creating like an APRU orchestra. So we bring musicians together from different of our universities' orchestras, from all the different economies, North, South America, Southeast Asia, Asia, China, and they will play together. And they will play together
Interesting.
a mixed program of traditional and modern compositions from the global north and south and west and east, and they will perform this. So it's really like, as I said before, APRU is the globe in a nutshell, and this orchestra will give us audibility, not just visibility, and the musicians will play together the different tunes and live a different kind of globe.
Absolutely. I'm really pleased that you share these core projects because they really give an understanding of how of the creativity and diversity and the possibilities of global citizenship once it's translated into practice and actions. It's a mix of music, culture, art, academia and research and teachings. It's very, very interesting the work you're doing. All right, so we are heading towards the end of this conversation. And at the end of this conversation, there is always a challenging question, a final question. I call it the 3 keywords. And the question is, if you had to define global citizenship education in 3 keywords, what would they be and why?
Yes, thank you very much. I was prepared, of course, for this question, and I looked at the last couple of interviews you conducted. I'm happy to say that I have come up with 3 entirely new terms, which I think add to the definitions. I'm somebody who likes puns and also alliteration as a memory aid. So my 3 terms all start with a P, and I will elaborate on what they mean. So the 3 terms are preparedness, participation, and planetarism. And so by preparedness, I understand, I mentioned it a little bit before, that global citizenship really requires personal experience of different global contexts, a learning experience that is instilled in the students. And preparedness means really having the knowledge, understanding of the complexity of the globe. It doesn't come overnight, right? So you need to really have a deep learning experience and dig deep into the complex issues that haunt, I think, our global problems. There's also a deep willingness, a mindset that I think underscores global citizenship. There's a willingness to build respect and to learn from others and to value diversity. So I think that is what I include in the term preparedness. Then the second one is participation. As you know, participation is a key political right and also responsibility of citizenship. And now if you define global citizenship and education that leads to global citizenship, I think participation is important. So these people are not armchairs, as I said before. They shouldn't be armchair global citizens, but they should actively participate. And the objective would be to advance the comprehension or maybe the solution of global issues. But comprehension is a big step towards the solution of the issues, as you know, develop or participate in negotiations of that complexity. And that could start with conversations that we are conducting between different professors, students across our networks, administrators, different sectors of society, and also a willingness, I think, to prioritize consensus building over conflict. I think that underlines everything that we do in APRU. So participation, I think, is a key building block of global citizenship education.
Absolutely.
And then the last term I used here is planetarism. I am using here referencing a recent article by Stefan Pedersen. He published an article, Planetarism, a Paradigmatic Alternative to Internationalism in 2021, I think. I think this really is underscores or emphasizes the importance to develop a more holistic approach. And maybe that is even more holistic than if we speak about the globe. And as you know, there has been a recent tendency to speak about the planetary boundaries. And we have seen a shift in our programs towards using the word planetary. For example, our Global Health Conference, that is the annual flagship conference of our Global Health Program in the last year, last November in Bangkok, they used as a theme harmonizing human and planetary health. And the idea is that we need to move from a human-centered vision of the globe to a vision that in a transdisciplinary way looks at everything that influences health, and this also, of course, includes natural systems and their implication, biodiversity and its implications on human health. And so I think planetarism is here. I singled this out as a term to just emphasize how important it is for global citizen education to be as holistic as possible and to look at the planet and not just the human issues in a very comprehensive way.
The 3 Ps, very interesting.
The 3 Ps, right.
So thank you, Thomas Schneider, Chief Executive of the Association of Pacific Rim University, APRU, for joining the video interview series on global citizenship. It's been a pleasure to have this very engaging and interesting conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emiliano. It was a pleasure to be here, and I'm very keen to continue the conversation.